Good afternoon. Today's Battle Rhythm, Strengthening Mental Wellness Through Creative Arts, is being hosted by Caitlin Cashwell. Caitlin is the Director of Community Integration. Community integration is America's Warrior Partnership's proven model that provides communities with the tools and knowledge to implement and customize a program that is responsive to local veterans, their families, and caregivers. We empower communities to empower veterans. To find out more about community integration, please visit www.americaswarriorpartnership.org/community-integration. That's it for me. Caitlin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Allison, and welcome all affiliate communities, 4-Star Alliance members, veteran service organizations, and guests. Alternative therapies for TBI, mental and emotional health are transforming the way service members and their families deal with injury, pain, and reconciliation. Today, we'll be learning from Hannah Blumenfeld, Community Engagement Manager with Creative Forces, a partnership between the Department of Defense, Veterans Administration, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Steve Dilley will be joining us, and he is the Executive Director of the Veteran Art Project. You will also hear from 2 representatives from our spotlighted national resource, ChallengeAmerica, with Blaney, the Executive Director, and Maggie Tolan, the Program Director. Through this session, please post your questions in the chat box so we can answer them throughout the presentation and during the Q&A time. We will round off today's battle rhythm by breaking into collaborative breakout discussion groups. Throughout today's meeting, we'll explore how communities can create support programs, best practices, and hear about the impact of the arts and other alternative therapies have in supporting the healing process for our warriors. Today's session will conclude at 3:15. So we're going to start with Hannah and Steve, and they are going to be talking about how art programs can work within your community. So Hannah, Steve, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here with all of you. Maybe we can start with some quick intros of each of us, and then we can kick off some conversation. I'm really thrilled to be here with Steve. We've been working together for the past few years and through Creative Forces. So it's really nice to be able to share a little bit from the perspective of the national. And Caitlin, Allison, thank you so much for the great intro about what Creative Forces is and what we do. Again, I'm Hannah Jacobson Blumenfeld. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Creative Forces, which is a partnership, as you heard, with the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs, as well as the state and local arts agencies and the National Endowment for the Arts. And we're managed in partnership with Americans for the Arts, the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine, and Mid-America Arts Alliance. And our goals and our mission really line up with a lot of what's been said so far, which is that we seek to improve the health, well-being, and quality of life for military and veteran populations exposed to trauma, as well as their families and caregivers. So the idea is that we work across 3 different platforms, really. The community side, which is where I spend most of my time, the clinical side, and capacity building. So I'll have some resources to share, and we'll be happy to share a little bit more about all of those things. And I know that later in the breakouts and certainly through this conversation, want to share a little bit more from the national perspective about the impact of the arts on well-being. It's something that we've studied from a variety of perspectives, differently from the clinical side than the community side. And just to give you a quick sense of where we are, I'm going to be going a little in and out of screen share, and then I'd love to pass it over to Steve in just a second. But to give you a sense of where we are across the country. These are our clinical locations where we have creative arts therapists who are stationed at these different VA and DoD sites. And we also have community projects that are related to and centered on those same places so that we can better build that warm handoff, that clinic to community connection that is so critical as we think about how people are transitioning either way, but particularly as they start to return to communities and the necessity of making sure we're supporting them there. So I will stop sharing and speaking for now and pass it over to Steve for intros.
Thank you, Hannah. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate being here to talk to such a wonderful group. As someone who started the Veterans Art Project, it was a means of working through my own artistic responsibility. I wasn't in the military. My parents met in the Navy. And more importantly, living here in San Diego, we're talking back in 2003 and 4, that there was a narrative that kept on happening, and that was Marine deployed 14 months, stack of money, motorcycle, 30-pack of beer. And so we saw some really bad health outcomes from that. And, identifying and working with the veterans in our community, we started this little project, and it's grown beyond our largest, wildest dreams, and currently hold a 5,000 square foot facility for veterans, active duty spouses, dependents, and caregivers here in Vista, California. We teach ceramics and glass. And later in the breakout room, I'd like to share a couple of things. One is we're currently holding the Mental Health Services Oversight Accountability Commission contract for veteran mental health and wellness to the state of California. These are all pop-up art cafes. We're in our second year of that contract. So I have our first year report to share. And then also, I would also like to always bring it back to, we have an opportunity to intervene and disrupt veteran suicide, and also help them make sure that they are connected well in the community, because I think what supports our veterans is a very robust community, and that these individuals are not islands. So anyways, I'd like to delve into that facility and access to facility later in the breakout room. And thanks for having me here, everyone.
Steve, I love that you mentioned this idea of healthcare. And I think one thing that we're really thinking about at Creative Forces, and just generally about the arts and the arts as a tool and a strategy for well-being, is really about shifting the healthcare paradigm and thinking about how the arts allow us to move away from a problem-based approach to care and towards a real strength-based and positive approach. I think the arts are really powerful in that way. And in particular, the way that we really think about creative arts therapies, again, separated from what we are doing on the community side, which is not a credentialed art therapy, but is also incredibly important and supportive to this process, is with 3 C's that I wanted to share. Communication, that through creative expression, a patient is allowed new ways to tell their trauma narrative, increasing insights for the patient, their family, their treatment team, and society. And then the second one is connection, that service members and veterans engage in group creative arts therapies and see their own stories in the artwork, the music, the dance produced by others, really helping them to connect and see that they aren't alone in what they're experiencing. And then lastly, capability, that rather than focusing on what's wrong and what's broken, creative arts therapies really unleash what a person can still do and what they can create, which really empowers them across their journey of healing. And I want to say that while there are certain impacts that we're measuring clinically, and I'll go into this a little bit later, that are different from the community outcomes, these are still things that we can all be focused on, I think, as we consider how the arts are both a tool and they're really aspirational. They're a strategy, but they're not just a strategy. They're also, there's a there to doing art and to making art a part of our lives in general. And so I think, it's really important that we are thinking about that as we think about moving the arts into community spaces and how they do operate on this really positive level. And I know, Steve, you've seen a lot of that in your own programming.
Yeah, on the community side, Hannah, we advocate for access to facility, that is age appropriate, doesn't infantilize experiences. We advocate for deep arts engagement, and people say, what is it, deep arts engagement? It's that opportunity when you're working on a project and you look down at your phone and then 3 hours later, you're like, oh no, I'm late for dinner. That is an extreme form of being present and in that time. And also, I'd like to stress that access to a nonverbal means of communication. People say, I don't know what to do in art. And I'm like, just, start doing something, because whatever line, whatever you do to it is the beginning point. But that access to nonverbal means of communication, Hannah, we hear it time and time again from the spouses. And the important thing to remember here is someone reports and they say, what did you do to my husband? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Because I've heard this before. And what they say is, my husband's been coming and doing your classes, and we've been married for 15 years, and he hasn't ever said anything more than pass the salt at dinner. And all of a sudden we had a conversation last Saturday, and he told me about everything, not only of what he did in the military, but when he grew up. So there's a correlation there, and I'm not sure it's well understood, but I think it's something that if we can open up avenues of communication, inclusive of expression, we've done, we've really taken that personal and made it universal. And when that happens, we really have an opportunity for a community to, I think we can all, if we're listening to this America's Warrior Partnership Zoom today, we can all understand the negative impacts of isolation brings upon our communities in general. So these are all things that we're always advocating for. And, on the mental health side, they're telling us, well, we never had the correlation or understanding that art making had this wellness outcome. And it's funny because I came from the art side, and that was the only reason why I was doing it. So, but I think people are looking at different opportunities. It's more relevant, and the opportunity to share this, and and it's really about that process.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought those up. It's a great moment, I think, to share some of the outcomes that we are talking about and thinking about. So again, with Creative Forces, we do have the clinical side and the community side that are measuring somewhat different things, though they're very much connected. So because it's such a great segue from what Steve was talking about on the community side, I want to share a bit of what we're looking at here on the community engagement side first. Now, we have been working for the past several years with community programs and calling them community connections projects, connecting again with those same sites where there are creative arts therapists stationed. And we are now moving into a new phase of the community side program, which will be the community grant program. And these are the outcomes that we're looking for in that grant program. Creative expression. Participants have a better understanding of themselves and others by creating or engaging with art, very much speaking to what Steve was just talking about. And that social connectedness piece, so critical, that they have supportive relationships in their life and a sense of belonging to community. Resilience, that participants feel they can rebound from stress and unexpected events and cope with life's challenges. And then independence and successful adaptation to civilian life, that participants have both an individual and a shared sense of purpose, as well as positive self-worth that supports adapting and readjusting to civilian life. So these are not necessarily about mechanisms for, I realize I used the word cope, probably not the right word to use, in fact, and this is where things get really interesting and nuanced here, that in fact, resilience is a little bit different from a coping mechanism, and that social connectedness is different from some of those specific questions of isolation. So here's probably a good moment to share these Creative Forces clinical key findings from our research. And we are doing clinical research, and the findings are still being developed. We're still absolutely studying these, but wanted to share these top line key findings so that we can think through and really work through some of these differences and distinctions. That this first one is enable recovery from traumatic experiences through meaning making, positive reframing, and verbal processing, reducing symptoms associated with PTSD, including flashbacks and nightmares and interrupted sleep, improving awareness and tolerance of PTSD and TBI symptoms, such as hypervigilance and pain and stress, encouraging development of healthy independent coping mechanisms through the creation of a safe environment and therapist and patient rapport, channel aggressive behaviors and provide a means to address anger and anxiety through creative expression and improved self-regulation, and fostering the ability to experience hope and gratification and increased confidence through a strengths-based rehabilitation, again, returning to that strengths-based piece. And then finally, reducing isolation and stigma through meaningful interaction with others and improved communication with family, peers, and providers. So I think you'll see a lot of the parallels, this communication piece, some of these ideas of channeling through creative expression, and then how we think about those, though, on a clinical versus community basis are really part of our conversation internally at Creative Forces, and I think are part of the conversation more generally, that we really want to be aware that as community groups, we are not in charge of doing these things about processing and coping and pain and stress. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing incredibly important things on the community side. And it doesn't mean that they're not measurable. They are. They're definitely measurable. And I bring up this clinical piece because I think it's really important to understand that these things are happening and we can take the burden off a little bit in some ways to have to do some of those things that just aren't necessarily in the purview of what we are used to or what we have capacity for in community-based settings. But we can do a lot. And I'd love to pass it over to Steve, because I know that you have done a lot of thinking and a lot of work on these things.
Thanks, Hannah. I just want to kind of circle back to some of these really simple ideas, and and it's kind of the how. And I think the community, I'm naturally attracted to community, so I'm naturally want to create it outside of myself. But if we touch upon facility, I think it's there may be in between the commitment and what's doable and feasible is starting small and making sure that people have access to it. We are talking about this idea of participation avoidance and how that influences people trying new experiences, and that they may need an outside support network to get started. But once they get started, it's like riding a bike, they really start. And so, something that's dedicated facility, allowing people to come, having access to it, maybe having access to come in and play, investigate. It may not seem like people are doing anything, but they might be walking around in circles, but they're familiarizing themselves to it. It's a process that I use. And so, and how that through supportive community, meaning, talking to people, always having the door open. People come by my office a lot of time every day, and I spend most of my day talking to people. Hi, how you doing? What's going on? And then the most important thing is that if people are making something, creating some kind of music, how that needs for completion many times is the dignified display of that completed work. And then how do you do that? Where do you do that? But also these are all questions that can be answered in your own individual communities. But that's where the partnerships happen, and that someone could have an exhibit here, and it could be at the coffee shop. But there's better places for that to happen, because I think for the participants, they are getting input now from someone they don't even know, talking to them about their artwork. And that's just really positive, because, a lot of times, there's not a lot of positive support for art making in the society. And that if we can reduce that, the incidence of participation avoidance, what we've been told by working on the clinical side here in San Diego is that the arts engagement are the door to raising all the other health outcomes that happen from it. People come in, they're very suspicious, they get into some process. I'm talking bronze casting at the time, and how that they would buy into the whole program. So I think that's an important component. I also touch on a couple other things. This robust community guards against homelessness, which is an important issue. And also that at the end of the year, you could look at the Otis report, which is out of Otis School and Design, and there's an economic output for creativity also. And that people may go from, I need this, to something else, saying we may become practicing artists or teachers, right? And I think that's an important thing for people to understand, is that the reason that they needed it when they started is the same reason they need it as they go from the see one, do one, teach one philosophy. And how does that, and I like to say, if that's good enough for American medicine, it's good enough for our veterans, right? Is that as a participant, you see one, then you do one, and then the next person comes in, guess what? You're going to teach that new person, right? There's a great opportunity, but that's, sharing in community. So I think those are some good components to be considering.
Yeah, I think those are so important. And I saw that Allison put in the chat, what does it take to start an effort? And I want to just underscore something that you were saying before, which is that starting an effort, remembering that starting small is really, really not only fine, but usually what happens, and often one of the most powerful ways to start, because when you're starting with a core group of, say, one person is coming, 2, 3, many of the projects that work with Creative Forces started with maybe 3 people coming to their open studio session or their video session. We do a lot on Tele now on these virtual platforms, but I would encourage folks to not be discouraged by small groups of people when you start, because as Steve is saying, people share, and one of the most powerful ways that they share is peer-to-peer, and that the way that we get the word out in this context is often through participants doing it with the projects, really just engaging with these projects and then spreading the word. And that is a really sustainable way to build this also, and trust building, because I think making sure that people know that you're not just going to go away, that you're really there, and continuing to provide these experiences. I know we are running out of time. So I'm happy to answer more questions later. And Steve, maybe if you want to take the last word on what it takes to start an effort, and then we'll be there for the Q&A.
Yeah, just real quick, Hannah, and you touched on it great, is that someone asked me once, and it was one of the commanders over on base, and he said, well, what are you afraid of? No one's, it's going to be successful. And I said, or you're not going to have anyone there. And I said, I already know it's going to be successful, but every time a new class starts, it starts with crickets. And I teach to the crickets. And then the second time I have one person. And then it's like, and before you know it, you build in. But when we're having a bronze casting class and we have 18 participants there on a Saturday, people's eyebrows raise because they're choosing to be there. So you don't know what it'll develop into.
Yeah, I think that's great words, Hannah and Steve. Thank you all so much for providing your insight on how it works from the community level, and then also some statistics and research on the back end of that. So we're going to move on to talking about a national resource. We have Dallas, Blaney, and Maggie Tolan with ChallengeAmerica, and they're going to talk a little bit about their program and how it is accessible to you and the veterans you serve.
Thanks, Caitlin. First of all, I want to thank Allison, Caitlin, and American Warrior Partnership for putting this on. This is incredible. What a great conversation. And it's great to follow up Hannah, my good friend Steve, who I've known for many years. What an honor. And, we take a lot of the cues for the work that we do from the amazing work done at Creative Forces. So it's really great to hear from the source. What a wonderful thing you guys are doing here. So I'm Dallas Blaney. I'm the executive director of ChallengeAmerica. And if everybody will just bear with me for a second, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about who we are and some of the other stuff that we do, just very briefly. And then I'll dive into a little bit about what we're doing around the arts. And then I'll hand it over to the real brains, the genius behind everything we do, which is our amazing program director, Maggie Tolan. And then I'll come back in at the end and make a couple asks of everybody. So, but just to get started, if you haven't heard of Challenge America, we launched in 2009. We're a national nonprofit that really works to help veterans unlock the power of innovation, of the creative arts, and of community. So everything we're talking about today really speaks pretty well to us. A couple of the other projects that we work on outside of the arts, one is our Military Sisterhood Initiative. That's a national peer support network for women veterans that has over 5,000 members from all 50 states and 21 countries. So we're really proud of the work we do there. And then we also work on an innovation project called CAM Vets, where we develop innovative products that address the unmet needs of disabled veterans. And over the last 3 years have developed more than 67 products that do just that. So we're really proud of that work as well, and our partnership with the VA around that work. And then in addition, one of the things that we do is our music therapy retreats for veterans who struggle with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. And that work has actually led to what I'm here to talk to you about today. One of the challenges, and I imagine many of you out there have faced this challenge, and Hugo mentioned it earlier in the chat. He said, is art just a means to an end, or is it kind of an end in and of itself from a therapeutic standpoint? And I guess from our experience, what I would say, Hugo, is that it's both. With what we've experienced with music therapy is that it can be a means to an end to help connect veterans to a much broader community and trigger engagement. But, at least with music and other art forms too, what we've also experienced is that it can be very therapeutic in and of itself. So it's an end in and of itself, I think. It activates the brain in a way that many other modalities don't. One of the challenges we always face, though, was that connection piece with our music therapy retreats. And it's something we struggled with for years, that we would do these retreats, they'd last a few days. Veterans would have an incredible experience and a really transformative one. But then at the end, we had a really hard time trying to keep them connected to each other and to us, to keep the healing going. So really the pandemic in a lot of ways created an opportunity for us to really dive deep into that particular problem. And again, going back to Creative Forces, we looked at a lot of the research they did on these issues and took cues from them to build out what we think is a really incredible community. Although I wish I would have gotten the cue about starting small. We definitely did not do that. So, but what we've done is we've built a national community that we hope will grow into a national hub for veteran arts, a space where veteran arts and veteran serving art organizations can go. And the art organizations can share the amazing work they're doing with veterans and for veterans. And the veterans can go there to connect with one another, to discover new resources, to learn new skills, and to share the amazing work that they're creating as well. To find that audience that Steve spoke about, trying to share their work with others, which can be such a huge inspiration for them to keeping that work going. So before we dive into the details, you guys are going to get a firsthand view of what we built. But I just want to give you a few numbers to get you started off. So right now, we launched this thing back in March 15th of 2021. So it's only about 9 months old. And right now we're at about 2,600 members, 2,630 actually, as of this morning. We're growing by about 20 or so a day. And that rate of growth continues to grow over time as well. So, and those veteran artists come from all 50 states and over 11 countries. And really they come there to connect with one another, to share their art, to discover new art forms, new skills, in some cases to engage in therapeutic art activities. It's really amazing. And so I'm really excited to share all this with you, and more excited still for everyone to get a chance to meet Maggie Tolan, who's absolutely incredible. So Maggie, if you want to take it away and give everybody a view, that would be great.
Thanks, Dallas. So happy to be here. It's really an honor to be part of this group. And I just get the privilege of kind of sharing the face of it all. So it is a lot easier to explain what CAV Arts, our Challenge America Veteran Arts community, is by showing it. It is an online community. It's built for connections, doing a lot of what has been talked about here, creating those connections among veterans, and allowing them to explore their interests together, to collaborate on projects, to share, to also engage in different offerings and programs going on. So it's really built for all of that. It has kind of the look and feel of a social media platform without all of the noise. And it is exclusive to the veteran community. So it has an activity kind of feed here that is the landing page that has different posts, and you can comment on them. This is an example question that we posted, and we have 1,321 comments on it. You can like questions, or like posts. We have different featured posts of things going on at the time. And we also have, a tutorial and a welcome section when people first come in. We always have the veteran crisis line up front and center, and just highlighting different things that we have going on. But this activity feed is really about the members sharing what they're working on and showing their amazing art. We have everything from, you see, knitting, and we have painting and acrylics, just a huge variety of different artwork going on, and really incredible stuff, and all levels too. It could be veterans just interested in kind of getting to know what it's all about, and maybe trying to learn a new art form, to professional artists. So it runs the gamut. And then each member has their own profile, so they can, kind of like a social media where you'd have your profile and a picture and a little description, your branch of service, that kind of thing, whatever you want to add. And then we have these different, you can see in the navigation, we have different pieces. You can look at members and search members. You can find members near you as well, which is a very exciting feature, especially for creating connections locally. And then we have topics, which helps to create different sections if you want to explore different kinds of posts. And we also do a lot of kind of campaigns and activities regularly to engage the community and get them connected to one another. We recently did a holiday exchange that was really fun, connecting. We paired up veterans who wanted to participate, and we had about just over 100 or so participants, and they were paired and then just exchanged something for the holidays. So it could be art piece that they wanted to send, or a letter, a poem, and here they shared some of the things that they sent. So that was really fun. So we kind of are always doing different stuff in here, but we also really love to share what everyone else has going on, because we know there are so many organizations doing amazing things. And so we have the events calendar where we post different events going on around veteran arts. And right now we have all virtual pretty much. But once, hopefully, we can start doing more things in person and there's more going on, you can search events nearby as well. So we're hoping this really explodes, and then we have things going on in every corner of the country. And then, yeah, you can also search events in a calendar view or like this. And then just to show you kind of what it looks like, we have a wallet making workshop coming up. So it looks like this when you have an event and you can sign up. And then the other cool thing about this is that it kind of has infinite potential to grow into whatever, you know, we want it to be. So we have a lot of spaces within it that we can do different things with. So right now we have art rooms for different, the kind of bigger art forms, you know, visual arts, writing, music, theater. So the bigger buckets, but we kind of have the potential to grow into a lot, even more focused groups. So these are kind of built to be sub-communities of people interested in more specific art forms. So you can see when you come in, it has a similar look and feel. It's just a community within the community, and then you can go back to the larger network. And in that same way, we have different spaces in what we call the creation station. We have a resource library where we hope it will continue to grow, and always it's kind of designed to be a living, breathing resource library with just different programs, services that are available to veterans. So we kind of have this broken up by art forms as well, and exhibiting opportunities, things like that. But the idea is that this will continue to evolve, and that members can also post in here and about resources that they actually have experience with and want to share. So that's more interactive in that way. And then we have veteran-led workshops. So the veteran members have come to us and say, you know, I want to offer a photography workshop. I want to offer jazz improv. So we've had all sorts of different workshops going on that are actually led by our members, and that's been really exciting. So we're developing and growing this library of different workshops that have been going on that you can see if it loads. Yeah, so we have, I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I also wanted to just mention that we also are working with different partners to create specialized spaces within the community that offer different programs or workshops for those partners. So for example, we're partnering with Tandy Leather, and they're hosting a variety of leather crafting workshops, and we're doing that in collaboration, and that's been really amazing. So we're building out this workshop library as well with them, and that just started about a month ago. So we've had 2 already, and we have another one coming up at the end of this month. And it's been really fun. So I think that kind of gives an idea. I don't know if Dallas, you want to add anything?
No, I think you did a great job. I think the only thing I would maybe add is one of the other features that we can also develop, and we've been using actually for our music therapy retreats, is that when you're doing, you know, art therapy, and in our case it's music therapy, you want to make sure you're having a private space that makes veterans feel safe and secure. and so we have the ability to do that as well. So for example, in our music, and you're getting a behind the scenes view, when you log in, you wouldn't see all this stuff because we have admin authority, but we can also build private spaces that are just for that specific group where you can do therapy and the conversations are just contained within that group. So it's incredibly feature rich. We can do all kinds of amazing things in here. On that note, I have two asks for everybody. And I'll try to make these short so we don't run too terribly over time. One is we're absolutely looking for more veterans. We want to grow this, and it's free for veterans. Everything we're doing on here is free. If there are any opportunities that have a cost attached to them, for example, there's some external partner that's, or some external organization that's doing some art-related activity and they charge to participate, then we go out of our way to make sure that we make veterans aware that that's the case. But to join and to participate in everything that we're doing in here is absolutely free for veterans. So we're just looking for more veterans to join. The more the merrier. The other thing, so please help us spread the word, and we'll be sharing some information that you can use to do that. The second thing is we're looking for partners. We are not territorial in any way, shape, or form. We want more organizations to come on board with us and share the amazing work that you're doing with the veterans that we're serving. So if you have art-related workshops or art-related information that you would like to share with these veterans, we welcome you. And please reach out to us, reach out to Maggie or to me. I left our contact information in there, and you can absolutely email us. We'd love to talk to you and see if we can't create a space for you to share your information as well with the veterans that we serve. So I think with that, I'll shut up. and I just want to thank everyone for joining and thank the team at American Warriors Partnership for the wonderful invitation to join you all today.
Thank you, Dallas and Maggie. So I do think we've answered some of the questions that we saw coming throughout, but there are a few maybe that we might have missed. Allison just asked how to market or discuss this topic with the veteran population. That might be a discussion more in the breakout. I had a question. Have you seen partnerships happen? This might be for Hannah. Have you seen partnerships happen with universities locally? So just thinking they already have resources they already offer. So is there collaboration opportunities there for them to offer free programs?
Yeah, that's a great space for partnership. And I know some of our projects have done it. Steve, have you done, I think you have, right?
Yeah, so we've done it, I don't know, 15 different sites, mainly community colleges. And we actually funded classes at Daytona College, Cochise College, Arizona Western College. And that was seed money that happened. And then the colleges, once they understood the importance that they were connecting with a whole other demographic of veterans, that they decided to fund it through their own foundations. And so I think that's an important thing because we're getting artists who are working with veterans, and the veterans are choosing to show up. They vote with their feet. That's a really important component to remember, and that people want to do that. So I think there's a lot of support out there, but you just got to get over that first hump of that, just getting it started. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of naysayers, but don't let that worry you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I love that because part of what follows along from that partnerships and outreach piece, that yes, partnering with local community colleges or universities is a great way to grow that base. And there are a lot of different ways to grow that base, including also partnering with your local VA or other facilities that are in your community. And I know I'll pass it back to you, Steve. And I also have a quick shout out that I know April Sullivan is on here and is going to be running a breakout room, and they have some fantastic experience with partnering with the local VA. So working on some of those partnerships, I think, can be really major for helping make sure that your face is there and people know you and they feel like they can trust you and know you as a person. And I think showing up is really important. And a lot of that is what I've heard from amazing practitioners like April and Steve.
Yeah, if I was going to jump on that, Hannah, real quickly, don't forget your you have community space from your parks and recreation departments, right? I mean, that's a great first, real easy. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Using what's there first is a big philosophy of America's Warrior Partnership. Okay, Becky asked, what are some of the ways that a mental health care practitioner supports their client in, sorry, hold on one second. What are some of the ways that a mental health care practitioner supports their client in shedding performance anxiety? Anybody have any thoughts on that one?
They've been doing, with this Massac contract we've been doing, working with Resounding Joy here in San Diego, and it comes down to a drum circle. And, I love to jump on there because I can beat on that drum like a chimpanzee all day long. But that's the enthusiasm of not being self-conscious that hopefully is infectious to the other participants, right? And so I think if we're listening to this, you're already a leader. You're already thinking that this is a good idea. This is an initiative. It's time to take that and move it to the next step. And how do we implement that in the community? And sometimes it's through these very simple steps that get it going, that collaboration in the VA, maybe something in Parks and Rec department, and 2 or 3 of those, and hey, you got a program. So it can be as simple as these. I think we're always thinking there's some other there instead of where we're at right here.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Steve. And just to build on that too, with our music therapy retreats, when we're doing them in person, we would take veterans who, when you first meet them, they're, the folks who are really struggling with severe post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma. And then within the course of 3 days, we have them performing in a live concert in front of an audience, sometimes of 50 to 100, including family and friends who come out to support them. And so it's possible to do this kind of thing and get them from A to Z very, very quickly. But there's a whole method to it. And there isn't just a single silver bullet kind of solution. You really have to put a lot of thought, at least in our experience, into developing a program that nurtures them and gets them to that point. But I'd be happy to talk about all of that experience with y'all in the breakout rooms if you'd like to ask more.
Thank you. And that is going to cue us into our breakout rooms. But we do have a message real quick from Josh Wilson, but I'm going to say thank you so much to Hannah, Steve, Dallas, and Maggie for such great presentations. There's more questions coming to the chat box, so I do hope people stick around to do some of the breakout discussions so those questions can be answered. And then Josh Wilson, would you like to share an exciting opportunity with our organization?
I most certainly would. Hello to everyone. I'm Joshua Wilson with America's Warrior Partnership. I'm the corporate relationship manager here. And through some of our connections, we got in touch with filmmaker Frederick Marks. He has founded a 501c3 known as Warrior Films. And I'm going to include a link to that website in the chat. But basically, Warrior Films is a nonprofit production company headquartered in California. Founded by Oscar and Emmy nominated producer director Frederick Marks. He made Hoop Dreams. And what he is currently working on is a film series known as Veterans Journey Home. It's a 5-part series. I have access to trailers and private versions of this film. It's telling stories about veterans from different walks of life, facing all sorts of various difficulties and challenges, talking about combat, post-traumatic stress, talking about living life and making connections, talking about expressing themselves through art. So far, the films seem to be top notch. They're really amazing. And they're looking for community leaders to screen these films. So if you are interested in potentially having a screening of this film, partnering with Warrior Films, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out directly to one of the executives there, and I will put the contact information in the chat box. And then Allison will also put it in the after action report. So thank you guys. Hopefully that's an opportunity that some of you will want to take advantage of, and I can help you out with it.
And just so everybody knows, if this helps, we're partnering with them already to do a screening up here in Aspen. So they seem like, it seems like a really great organization. The films seem really incredible.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, I'm going to take it over, Caitlin, because we're going to get cut on time if we're not careful. So for the next 25 minutes, we're going to go into breakout groups. In a few minutes, I'm going to open up those breakout rooms for the collaboration activity. So you see the topics right there: building community, program development, collaboration with clients, and forging community partners. So I'm going to open the room. If you can go ahead and just select one you want to be in. Remember to just say your name and your organization, because introductions, we won't have much time for talk. So I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. Guys, see you back in about 20 minutes. Welcome back, people. I think we'll get started with our wrap up. So group number 1, building communities with Dallas, Maggie. Do y'all have any big thoughts that came about in your breakout that you'd like to share with us? Any key thoughts?
Yeah, I think, we had a really great conversation and met with a lot of really great folks. And I'm trying to think if there were any big insights that we generated out of it. I just think we just had a really nice conversation about how we can do a better job of all together of serving veterans and helping them connect with the arts and try to discover that interest within themselves.
Perfect. Thank you. Number 2, program development. Steve, do you guys have any big thoughts that came in your group?
I had a couple things that popped up, and I really liked what Joshua was saying, that he was plied by a free iPod when he was on deployment in Africa, and they twisted his arm to take a creative writing class, and how that led him to, now Josh can answer this, but it led him to college. You know what I mean? And that sometimes that we may be engaging with or sharing with someone, and we don't know what that foundational will lead someone to. But it's the beginning of something. And we've seen many of our participants who are now enrolled in art classes because they want to be an art major.
Wow. Right.
So, and not that I want to create everyone to be artists, but how about you get a chance to learn this part of yourself and use that as the basis to decide who do you want to become.
That's perfect. That was you sound like you had some good discussions going on there. Okay, number 3, collaboration with the clinical community. Hannah?
I think the main takeaway that we really saw was making sure that we know what's out there and what the opportunities are. I think that was really critical. And making sure that we have the resources out there so that people can connect, especially virtually. Now our communities are a lot bigger. We can be national in so many ways.
Exactly.
I know that's Perfect. What you all do. It's fantastic.
And thank you. And number 4, the forging community partnerships. April.
Yeah. Well, we came up with a great idea to involve art activities and the arts organizations from your community and maybe a veteran expo, jazz it up a little bit, make it fun. That way families can come. And that was an idea that came out of our group.
Perfect. I'll get it in the notes. We'll make sure everybody reads the after action notes for more information about that conversation. So I'm going to pass it back over to Caitlin. Thank you guys all for playing with us today. Go ahead, Caitlin, take it away.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you to our speakers, Hannah, Steve, Dallas, Maggie, and April as well. Thank you for the informative presentation and sharing your expertise with us. And thank you all, the audience, for being a part of the conversation, collaborating and sharing. At America's Warrior Partnership, we empower communities to empower veterans, and we hope that today provides you with powerful insight, best practices, new partners, and tools to do just that. Let's get the conversation going. We believe communities are best equipped to improve the quality of life for veterans, and our goal at America's Warrior Partnership is to provide community partners like yourself with support to help you deliver that quality service. Our next battle rhythm is on February 7th and is focused on exploring the trends and benefits of recreational therapy. So we hope you can attend. Thank you for joining us in this new year, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. See you next time.